We just finished today's episode of Beyond the Gates. It's Friday, August 14th, and there was a big reveal in today's episode. And just like the other big reveal that happened earlier in this year, actually not only a couple of months ago, it went over like a lead balloon. Most of us anticipated it. It wasn't very shocking. And I'll talk about that in a little bit because I do have some thoughts on what's going on here. But we start off at Orphe Jean's with Eva and Isaiah playing some little game where their eyes are closed, but they're touching each other's hands. I don't know. I've never seen anybody do it before. I guess it's something the kids do now. I guess it was cute. And then Kat comes in and she sees that she comes into Orphe Jean's and she sees them and she makes a joke about public displays of affection. Isaiah asks how she's doing, and then the conversation, and he also asks about Bill, and, Eva doesn't know that Bill's in the hospital, and Kat starts talking about how, Haley is, a big reason why he's not so well, and he should have never left Dani. But, quite honestly, why Eva and Isaiah were in this episode today was mind-boggling because the conversation they had was no different than the conversations we've seen them have in the past few episodes that they've been in. They have resumed their more intimate connections with each other, the sex. So they did talk about that and, how they can take some baby steps moving forward with maybe some candles and things, but Eva's still more comfortable in the dark. Also they were eating cornbread. She was there for the cornbread because Isaiah was like, do you want to leave? And she was like, I'm not going to let Kat chase me off. Kat wasn't even rude to her. Kat just didn't Kat talked about Bill and his illness. Like she wasn't mean to, even when she came in, she was just making a joke about public displays of affection. She wasn't snarky or anything, but Eva's like, I'm not going to let her run me off and, whatever. But they were eating cornbread with forks, and she was there for the cornbread, so that's why she didn't want to leave. And I guess, I've eaten if I put cornbread on top of chili, or like I put it on top of like the thing that I'm eating it with, and I want it to soak up that liquid, yes, I have eaten it with a fork in combination with the chili or the stew, but I've never just had a piece of cornbread on a plate with a fork. Listen, if it's something you guys do, great. It was just something that was a little shocking to me, and especially because they were both eating cornbread with a fork. I just haven't seen it before in terms of just a piece of cornbread sitting on a plate like it was a piece of cake. But to each their own. Everybody gets to enjoy their food and the way that they like it. It was just something that threw me, but anyway, Chelsea comes in, and of course Chelsea has to walk over to Isaiah and Eva, which was even weirder, and tell them how adorable they are and, the whole thing. So he asks about Bill and how she's holding up. Or maybe Eva did. I don't know. I just don't understand why they were in the episode. It just was a little mind-boggling to me. Eva did admit that she owes Kat her life, and so at least there was that. But I will say this: as much as I was confused as to what purpose they served in the episode, because the conversation was no different than the conversation that they've had in the past few episodes, like I said before. One thing I will give both Amber and Lami is and listen, this is coming from somebody who is not particularly invested in them as a couple, but what I will say for the actors, and I noticed it registered with me when the camera was on Lami and he had his close-up. In his eyes, you buy that this guy is in love with Eva. And when Amber had her close-up, in her eyes, you buy that this woman is in love with Isaiah. So kudos to the actors because they are in it. They are in it. They are not robots just reciting lines. They are, and we've seen them in live, so we know that they like get along with each other and they like each other and they obviously have chemistry. But today was one of those days, and I think it had to do with the close-up where we were seeing them looking at the other person, and I was like, God, I really do believe that these two people love each other, are in love with each other. And that's a great, that is the actors. That is purely the actors. And not a lot of actors can, we can point to some examples, not a lot of actors can sell it that way, but these two really can. So what is lacking in, I don't know how to say this. I do think that there needs to be more. The two characters need to serve more of a function, and have actual story. So, and I think that and I know that her scar is serving as somewhat of an obstacle and conflict in their relationship, but that seems to be smoothed over a little bit now. I think they should have played the beats more and let it play out over more time. But these two actors are selling it, and I will give them that. Over at the country club, Vernon, Anita, and Nicole are waiting for Dani. She has summoned them to talk to them about the bill of it all. She gets there, and Anita says she's afraid she's going down a self-destructive path. I keep looking over because I want to make sure I'm looking at the notes that I took. Vernon talks about how Bill has regretted the way he treated Dani. Now, I also believe Bill said to Vernon that he regrets leaving Dani, but of course, Vernon would be smart to leave that piece of information out in this in this conversation because they're already afraid that Dani's being drawn back in. So you don't want to give her that piece of hope. They tell her Andre is a good man, and she says they're misinterpreting the situation, that she and Bill, they're using, they love to use the girls. They love to use Naomi and Chelsea as, it's the girls, those almost 30-year-old women. They got to be there. And, she does say, we're connected and it's family. We're still family and we're friends. And Nicole is like, oh, you can see, that's what you call yourselves friends? Now, Nicole, I got to stop you for a moment. And I love you, but you're sitting talking about your love life with your ex-husband who cheated on you. So you might... And y'all are standing around the nurse's desk talking about the I love you here and I love yous there. And so, Nicole, you might want to kind of sit that part of the conversation out about exes being friends, because Ted might have only cheated on you once. Might have. But it was an ongoing affair. So it wasn't even like it was a one-night stand, one and done. It was an ongoing affair that he involved your son in. Wasn't using protection, got the woman pregnant, then ran her out of town. So, let's not play the, just like, Vanessa yesterday talking about how Joey has more of a moral compass than Bill does. Let's not, Nicole, let's not act like you weren't married to a cheater. He just was sneakier about it. He wasn't, you just were oblivious about it. Dani knew, and, she accepted things until the Haley of it all. Anyway, she just... Dani is in denial about her feelings for Bill as far as outwardly, I think she's also internalizing, because she was flashing back to the elevator sex. And I think that she's really trying to convince herself that all it is that, it's friendship, it's the girls, that they'll always be connected. But, Dani is she's trying to convince herself that, as well as her family, that there's nothing more between her and Bill. There obviously is. And they talked about the outbursts in the hospital with Haley and all the things. Martin and Smitty eventually show up. They were on early in the episode. We'll talk about that. But they show up at the country club. Martin has to go practice some basketball. Martin's doing this charity basketball thing, and I can talk about this, and that way we get it out of the way. They had seen Andre earlier at the coffee shop and asked Andre to participate in the basketball thing, but he was like, oh, there's going to be news cameras. I can't. There's news cameras. There's news cameras. I just like being behind the scenes, so he declines. Smitty talks, when Martin goes to get coffee, Smitty talks to him about, like, it seems like you're on edge about your past coming back to haunt you. And Andre, kind of blows it off like it's all under control. Now, we do learn over at the country club that Kyle, Ted, and Carlton are all going to play on the team with Martin, and they need one more person. That's why he was asking Andre. And Dani gets in a good quip about all Nicole's men being on this basketball team, which is really funny because her son, her ex-husband, her ex-lover, her current situation, whatever the hell, however they're defining each other, Nicole and Kyle. So it really is all the men in Nicole's life playing on this basketball team, which is kind of funny. Martin has this, and I don't know because I don't know if it's the actor's choice. I don't know. I know it's a dialogue thing as well. But Martin is just so formal with everybody. Like, when Martin talks to his family, it feels like he's talking to constituents. It doesn't feel like there's no familiarity. There's no... Even, like, when he had breakfast with Kat. Like, there's this awkward... like, it feels like he's on the campaign trail. It feels... It just is not... It's not natural. It just doesn't feel like... This is a person talking to people he loves, like, and people that he's known all of his life. His cadence, I just wish they would relax him a bit so that we see a Martin, we see the Martin, Dupree, Richardson family Martin, and we see, like the Congressman Martin. I'm hoping that we never see Congressman Martin again, that he loses this election. Heather, if you can make him lose the election, I might give you some grace. A few videos ago, I said I would give you 6 months grace, but after today, I might give you some grace. So that was, it was, ultimately Anita, Vernon, and Nicole said they would be there for Dani if she falls. She's fallen. But they were ultimately supportive. They just want the best for her. It was another, it's not a conversation we haven't seen before. It's just a conversation with new, with Bill's health and, just kind of with new wrapping, I guess. When Andre was over at the coffee bar, he was looking at those texts again. He called a mutual friend and asked them about their mutual, or he texted did he call or text? But it was about a mutual headache. That person, we find out that the mutual headache is no longer where Andre thought that person was. And the person that he was contacting texted him to watch his back. So, there's that. Andre and Martin, even like, we know that Andre is their cousin. He lived with them after his parents died. You would think that there would be, you'd think they'd be closer, like in terms of how they interact with each other. But even Andre and Martin, it's just there's such a formality to everything. And I think that also just goes back to the Richardson family in general. And maybe that is what they intend it to be and to feel like. And if that's the intention, then okay. It just, like, as a viewer, it just kind of comes off as these aren't necessarily like people who love each other and, but they keep saying they love each other. And Martin, I think, for me, is just kind of the constant where, his dynamic with everyone is very formal, not very familial. And I don't know, something about it just doesn't work for me. I know it probably works for you, but my video doesn't work for me. Over at Uptown, Noah has inherited a brick wall. It's not the brick wall, but he's inherited a brick wall with a bench. They could have at least given Jacob a bench with the brick wall. He was just standing there. At least Noah got a bench. Is it racism? No, just kidding. So Noah gets a bench. He's playing the guitar. Deanna hears him. they go and they have lunch and are all lovey-dovey. He doesn't have a lot of time because he has to get back to the clinic where he's doing very well at. And we learn that they've exchanged books for one another. They've given each other books, which they love, and they're right fit and all that stuff. And they want to have another date. And there's an open mic night tomorrow. And Noah's going to perform. And they're going to try to get people, to show up. Vanessa shows up. She meets Noah for the first time. He invites her to sit and stay with them. She loves him. Deanna is kind of like... She's got a bit of an attitude. She's like, we're just hanging out right now. It's nothing serious. Vanessa's trying to, talk it up. And she's like, it's just so good to see you smile like you used to. And Deanna says, like, before Dad died. Now, I think we're coming up on, I think it's this month. Or, I think we're coming up really soon on the anniversary of Doug's death. So, I would expect maybe to see... the brother and Deanna, I can't even think of his name now because he hasn't been on for so long. But, Vanessa says she'll try to get some people together for the open mic night. Deanna says, you could bring Joey. Vanessa says, I don't know that that's his thing, but we'll get people to support. So we had that. Before Vanessa got to Uptown, she was over at Joey's house. They were being lovey-dovey, but she had to leave for an appointment. He makes a mysterious call. And what it is that he had one of his henchmen grab Heather and bring Heather to his house. She says she was kidnapped, which she kind of was. He wants to make sure she's not using Vanessa. Don't hurt Vanessa. She's trying to convince him that Vanessa isn't her pawn. She wants a relationship with Joey. He knows that she's not the little girl that he grew up with, and that, he's heard about what the Impaler has done, but he has his limits. Joey, you really do? So now they're rewriting history, but Heather actually called him out on it and said, because Joey's like, even I have my limits. Joey, you had your girlfriend's husband killed so that you could have her. But Heather called him out on it and said, you get other people to do your dirty work. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. So at least there was that. And Joey ultimately puts another man. Randy's supposed to be following Heather, but he put somebody else to work with Randy because he wants her surveilled the entire time. I'm going to talk about... I'm going to come back to Heather. Kat and Chelsea meet up at the Orphe Jeans. Chelsea brings up Eva and how, things seem to be okay, and Kat's like, I can coexist in the same place with her, but that doesn't mean I want to talk about her. See, that's all we were asking for. And Chelsea's like, there's something weird with my dad's health, and I just need to spend more time with him. And Kat was like, well, Haley's not going to like that. And Chelsea's like, I don't care what Haley likes. Also, at the Dupree table at the country club, they did talk about the girls and Dani being convinced that Bill is having an affair, that Haley is having an affair, which Nicole did not know. So they did discuss that. Then Deanna joins Kat and Chelsea at Orphe Jeans and asks them to show up to the open mic night and bring Tomas and Madison. I guess Chelsea forgot that Madison's out of the country because Kat just said, we'll have to check our schedule, but we'll try to be there. And Chelsea says, we'll try to be there for you. But, girl, do you know your fiance is in Denmark? And also, Deanna is trying to sell Chelsea a house for her and Madison. We love our girl, Deanna. Andre walks into the country club, and Vernon thinks he sees him, but Andre gets a text to go to the Bowman, to a certain hotel, the Bowman Hotel, to a certain room. So he leaves, and Vernon's like, I thought I saw Andre. And Dani goes out and looks for him, and she's like, no, nobody saw him. So she tries calling. Now, where the hell is the hotel in comparison to the country club? Because Vernon says, I think I saw him. Dani goes out to look to see. She talks to the concierge. They're like, we didn't see him. And she's calling. When she tries calling him, he's already at the hotel. And so it was just like a weird time jump thing, because it's like, well, if Vernon just saw him And Dani, like, only a few minutes went, like, Vernon's like, I thought I just saw Andre. Dani gets up to go see if Andre's out there. And Andre's not out there. He's made it all the way. And I think the Bowman, see, this is what I'm talking about when I don't know where anything is. Because is the Bowman in D.C. or is the Bowman in Barrington County? I don't know. Anyway, he gets to the hotel room. The door is open. It's dark. He's like, hello, hello, hello. Spooky camera work. They did do good camera work. And the reveal is that it's Heather. And Andre is shook. He's got a frightened look on his face. Now to talk about Heather. I don't understand. Like, okay, I'm going to say this. When the show first started and I saw how good John Lindstrom was as Joey, and I knew John Lindstrom was a good actor because I had watched him on General Hospital, I had watched him on As the World Turns, so knowing that he's a good actor, but it was like, oh, like, I like this Joey guy, they'll probably need to, and it's John Lindstrom, you've got like a caliber, he's one of the, like 4 people at the time, Anita, Dani, and Nicole, 4 actors who had been on soaps before out of the whole cast, right? And so I was like, they'll probably eventually need to build a family around him. When I said build a family around him, I was thinking like give him a child, like make Derek his son that he's estranged from. A lot of people thought Ashley was going to be his daughter. I've said that Isaiah should be his son from an affair with Darlene, and that's why that explains a lot of the anger surrounding Elon and, that kind of thing. Bring the ex-wife in, like he has an ex-wife. Like, at no point did I think that they would bring his sister on to eat up the show. Because that's exactly the road they're going down. And my issue is, why did they decide that it has to be this type of character when Leslie already... Why it has to be Heather specifically? And I'm just going to say, why don't we get black villains and villainesses? And why did they declaw Leslie to have her just kind of floating around annoying people when we saw that she is a character willing to get blood on her hands the first week of the show? Why is Heather getting all this story point of view when Nicole is just sitting at the table talking to Dani about Bill? And I won't even call Nicole, Carlton, Kyle like a story. It wasn't like a story. It was. Did it have a beginning, middle, and end? Yeah, I guess kinda. But it was more vignettes than anything else. Why didn't they reveal Carlton as the Impaler, which would have given Nicole a story? She was sleeping with the enemy. It blows up Martin's campaign. And I made a video yesterday that said, if Heather is the person stalking Andre, like it does, there's story points that, that happen because it could impact Martin's campaign. Smitty brought that up. She's responsible for Derek's death, ultimately. So, Jacob and Naomi and, Andre is married to Dani, Naomi's mother. So, there are connections, but I just don't understand why they decided to do this. I still think it's a partial network thing because the network wants the show to look a certain way, but I just don't. I'm just confused because for me, Heather's not that. I think that there's probably some flowers in the attic stuff that happened going on with Joey and Heather, but Heather just doesn't land for me. Today's reveal was a big thud, just like the Impaler reveal was a big thud, and I just don't understand what they're thinking and why they're not and why is it another? Okay, I'm just gonna say it. And if anybody gets upset with me, just feel free. You don't need to comment. Just feel free to unfollow me. Why is it another white woman in Andre's life? Why are we, why is it another white woman that will ultimately be an obstacle for Dani and Andre. Now, I know Bill is floating out there because of the Bill-Dani secret, but it's just like, I just am perplexed as to why this is all happening. Why aren't we, this show has 11 recurring characters. Why are we not using some of these recurring characters for big reveals that the audience is already attached to and we know exists? Like, there are characters that Andre has not interacted with on the show that could have been a reveal from his past. But why? Or it could have been, I don't know. I just, as much as like, this show's been great this week. It's been, overall, it's been really good. But this reveal is just a dud. Heather, for me, is a dud. And this isn't, listen, the actress is lovely. I know I saw an interview where I didn't see her on Bold and the Beautiful. I know this is a very different role for her. I just don't get it. It's not working for me. And unless they're leading down a path where Heather is revealed as the impaler and goes off to prison, I'm not interested. I'm just not, I just am not interested. And this feels like a story that is going to play out like Kill Bill, where it's going to, we're going to be living with Heather for the next year. And it is unfathomable to me that you've got Leslie and Nicole sitting on the back burner of this show, and Heather is getting all this front burner story. It's inexcusable, and somebody needs to explain it, because I just don't understand it. I don't understand how you have like this huge cast, and you're like, these are who, and this particular grouping is who you're giving lead story to, and this new character is now starting to eat up the show story-wise. It better be short-term, because it's not going to be cute. It's not going to be cute when Heather becomes part of the core 4 opening credit. because that's the road we're leading down. And I know this is a rant, and it's an end of video rant. I'm almost at 30 minutes. I apologize, but I just don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me, and I just think there are so many different ways to go. And I would have preferred, honestly, y'all don't have a problem bringing on new characters. I mean, also, I want a note about Noah. You guys don't have a problem bringing on new characters. Why couldn't you bring on a new character that was from Andre's past, and make it like a black person, like a black woman, a black man, somebody. But also Noah, please rewrite. And this has nothing to do with the actor himself, because he's perfectly serviceable in the role. Just change it that he's the middle or older son, because there's no way in the world you're going to convince me this guy is supposed to be Kat and Chelsea's age, and close to Deanna's 21, 22. There's no way you're going to convince me that this guy is 20 to 30. You're not. So just change it that he's a middle older son to Kyle and not the youngest. Because if he's the youngest, then how the hell old is the oldest? Anyway, I'll be back later with the spoilers for next week. Sorry for the long video. Sorry for the rant. But the Heather stuff is just not it.